I'd like to welcome into the room Councillor Smith, Councillor Downer, Councillor Dunbar-Smith, who's just popped out. Thank you. Right, we'll move on. So confirmation of the agenda. Thank you. And second, Chris. Disclosures. Oh, sorry, yes. All those in favour? Opposed? So moved.
Aye.
Move on. Any disclosures of interest? None taken. We'll move on. So what we're here to do today is basically we have a report from the Waikato Regional Council on the submission to the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Amendment Bill. And the subcommittee will receive that. And we're also looking at the submission subcommittee endorses the submission on the Local Government Official Information Amendment Bill. I'll hand over now to Tracy to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, councillors. So this is the first meeting of our submissions subcommittee. So nice exercise, I think, to get us started for this training. We will have a lot of work in front of you. First of all, Mr. Chair, if I can just introduce the staff that are here today. We have Alejandro Cifuentes at the top of the table there. Alejandro is our team leader, policy implementation. So you will see Alejandro a lot in regard to a lot of these submissions, particularly submissions to do with climate change, biodiversity, natural hazards. Alejandro, for those councillors returning, is a familiar face to us and is across many of these pieces of work. Alejandro himself is also involved in working groups in Port Waikato, Kaiawa, Pukorokoro and Thames Coromandel in regard to shoreline management and very pertinent issues of those nature. Assisting Alejandro at the back, we have Annika Hamilton and Ashley now. Ashley, I just would like to recognise, has been awarded for those who follow our Facebook, an award for academic excellence. So the Dr. Andrew Smith Award for Academic Excellence, and it's given to the most academically outstanding full-time student in their final year of undergraduate study. So congratulations, Ashley. We are very privileged to have you working with us.
Congratulations.
So councillors, you will see these faces a lot. We have a pretty significant work program. So this topic, and I'll hand over to Alejandro to introduce, but I will just say it has been a topic of conversation of our previous council, particularly in regard to the provision of information. For those councillors who aren't aware, we have a website that has all of our hazards information on there. We freely share that. For us, this is something that we're looking forward to. We can formalise the provision of the information that we have. So really, Alejandro, we're in your hands, and there's already a couple of questions just around additional costs, obviously. The legal veracity, making sure we get the information right. The ability for it to not be bespoke to each regional council. Is there perhaps a regional sector approach? So if you can weave those into the presentation, that would be great.
Perfect. Waikato, as Tracy mentioned, my name is Alejandro Cifuentes. I'm team leader for the policy implementation team. Just checking that people online can hear me.
Yes. Hi, Alejandro.
Right. There you go. Ooh, that's close. I'll just put it here. I'll take you through the basis of the submission just by following the report. So I'll point out through you, Mr. Chair, the paragraphs of the agenda pack that you have on the pages, so just to make it easy to follow. You can see in the executive summary, paragraph 2, so that's page 5. Essentially, the changes to the Logoima Act are looking to introduce two main things. So it's improving natural hazards information that goes into LIM reports, and then enable local authorities to withhold information without that prejudices national security. The focus of our submission has been on the first set of changes due to the nature of the statutory role that we have and the proactive role that we as a regional council have taken into collating and investigating and modeling many of these information on hazards. If you look at page 6 on paragraphs 7 and 8, it outlines the key changes and the features of the bill. But essentially, the bill seeks to change the way district councils put information in LIM reports by providing territorial authorities with an obligation to provide information that's been made available to them in a reasonable format that is consistent with the regulations. So this is would be new section 44C of the Act. Now, this addresses the issue of inconsistency with providing natural hazards information in LIM reports. The majority of district councils have had legal challenges to information being put on LIM reports, and that has created an inconsistent approach to providing hazard information. Remember that the purpose of the Logoima is the availability of information, proper access of information, and protection of certain information. That in essence is something that enables local government and creates an obligations for us to make the information available to the public. That is all information that is held by local government authorities. On paragraph 8, you can also see that this is something that we've supported in the submission, and is the reduction of local authority liability when information is shared in good faith. Again, this is meant to mitigate the considerations that local government authorities may have not to put information based on fear of legal challenge. So it does away with that, but it does mean that the information has to be provided in good faith and is information that we have available at our disposal. Our submission can be summarized. You can see the summary on paragraph 13, page 7. We basically agree with the intent of the bill, and we consider that the regulations need to be prepared in close consultation with council. So this is something that is still a bit on the air, looking at the wording of the bill. But we've recommended that there's an obligation for the minister to consult with local government authorities when developing these regulations. So we actually know these regulations are the ones who pertain to the format in which the information is to be presented. So they haven't been developed yet, but there is a provision for them to be developed. And if they were to be developed, we asked to be part of that process. We also considered that the bill needed to be more explicit around the existence of residual risk, and we have provided a definition for it, which is from our Waikato regional policy statement. So the definition of residual risk that we have suggested to the select committee is the one that we currently have in the operative regional policy statement. We mentioned that there is uncertainty about whether some constructed structures that create risk should be included. Therefore, we have suggested their inclusion. This inclusion is limited to dams because it is a regulatory function that Regional Council holds as a building consenting authority under the Building Act. We acknowledge that there might be risks that arise from other structures, built structures, it might be roads, but we do not hold that information. Therefore, we decided not to submit on those specifics because we wouldn't have that information available to us, which is what the bill is trying to do. And overall, we supported the protection of TAs and regional councils against liability when information is provided in good faith. If that is okay with you, Mr. Chair, happy to go to questions now.
Thank you, Alejandro. If I can just jump back to paragraph 9, I think it is. Yeah. The security, etc. Do we have an example of that? I'm just sort of not sure what that national security covers.
To you, Mr. Chair, I can provide an example from the Official Information Act. So it could be the presence of a specific location of a base, or the boundaries, or the occupation of military facilities, for example. So that is protected under under the Official Information Act, and it would be equally protected because we would hold the information of the boundaries, we as in local government authorities. So that would be an example of something that might not be disclosed.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, an example of something maybe an installation, obviously they're rife around Central North Island, around the military facility in Waikato, but an installation for telecommunications, which may in fact be subject to the provisions of the Lagoima Act, and to put that on a limb may in fact prejudice the security of such a facility. So things like that.
Thank you. Could you speak it? Alejandro, could I just get you to turn your mic off? Thank you. Yep, it was just getting my head around what it was, and obviously those facilities within our region. Has this been overviewed by a lawyer? Just concern, I know a couple of councillors have concerns just on the legal ramifications of us providing this information. I know you touched on it briefly, but has there been a lawyer's overview?
To you, Mr. Chair, it has not. However, the majority of the information, as you can see in the submission, page 10, we already provide the information. So the information is provided proactively, and the work program that provides the information has sought legal advice to see what can be made available, how, and the legal disclaimers around the information that is made available. One thing to note, however, is that I will go back. So I have previous experience on Official Information Act, working for ACC and the Immigration New Zealand. One thing that I can tell you is that information is still discoverable. So the fact that we are not being made to disclose it by an act of parliament still means that the information can be requested by a person and we would make the assessment. Now, what the act of parliament does is it tells us which information we need to provide, which is the information that we hold, and we provide it in good faith. So it's only meant to tell people about the existence of hazard or risk that we have identified. So is nothing that we would not do under other circumstances anyway. And we are doing it proactively as the Waikato Regional Council. We're providing a lot of that information to the Regional Hazards Portal.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think the important thing is the information we would provide, we are already providing, and that information has already had been through legal review to enable it to be on our public website.
So that's our hazards portal. So just going on to that, I went through our hazards portal. It was unfamiliar to me, but does that come right down to individual properties? It seemed to me to be a generalisation of areas rather than if someone's going to look up, I'm buying number 7 Smith Street.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So first, I forgot to mention that Rick Lifting, who's the team leader of the resilience team, was meant to join us today, but he's tied up with the response to the weather event. The information that is provided in the Regional Hazards Portal is regional level information, which is meant to serve as an indication of the existence of a hazard on a specific zone. If we hold site-specific information, there is a request that people can go through the website and request site-specific information. If we have it, we will provide that. But the one in the hazard portal is regional level.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just trying to get my head around how this is creating a change for us. So if I understand correctly, the limbs of the district councils, city councils that we currently work with, they reference our hazard portal. This is instead going to shift to a requirement for us to provide information directly on that limb as opposed to just a reference to the portal?
To you, Mr. Chair. The requirement is for us to provide the information to the district councils, and then the district councils will have to make the information available in the limb. In the absence of regulations, they will use best practice. So that is the submission point we're making. When the regulations are developed, then there'll be a format, but it will be up to the district council. It is for us just to provide the hazard information that we have to them, which we have been doing proactively. So it
Right.
doesn't mean that we have to put the information in the limb. We just provide it to the district council.
Right, and so then the district council will, assuming they would continue in their limb to reference that hazard portal as the source of up-to-date information. Right? This isn't, I suppose when I'm thinking of a limb, I'm thinking of, you know, if you're going through a sale and purchase process of a property and you get a copy of the limb. So that is a point in time of what is identified relevant to that property. I guess I'm trying to get some sense that if the hazards associated with a particular property might change over time, where's that communication of what is the most up-to-date information with regard to a particular property at any one point in time? You know, it might shift. So I'm just trying to get a sense of where we protect ourselves. I understand that there is protection of liability to councils proposed in this, but I also, beyond our liability, I want to make sure that our community members have access to the right information at the right time. So I'm just trying to get a sense of where that sits.
To you, Mr. Chair. And just to quote a specific example, Hamilton City Council has hazard information referred to the hazard assessment that they've developed as part of the district plan. And that is more accurate to the site specific and granularity of the information is actually more specific. So they reference that one. However, if you were to look at the information they provide for hazardous substances and contaminated land, there is a disclaimer and an advisor note essentially saying there might be information that is not identified. For more accurate information, contact the HAIL team at Waikato Regional Council. So there's always best practice that dictates that information changes. What we've identified through talking through some of these issues with district councils is that they actually make a good effort to make sure that every time they issue a limb, it has the most up-to-date information. However, a limb is only a snippet of that information in time. So if you requested in January, for the sake of putting an example, and there's a hazard event like we are experiencing now that shows that an area that we didn't know was exposed is now exposed to an event of 1 in 200-year magnitude, then that might be reflected in a further limb once we've completed the investigation and once we've actually modeled the information. You are correct, it is a snippet in time. However, the district councils do work that every time somebody requests a limb, the more up-to-date information is presented, and there's disclaimers and advisory notes to chase the information in other sources.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll just come back to Tracy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One other matter to take account of is not only if events occur, but if we have more up-to-date technical reports. So there may be a technical report that's within the publishing pipeline effectively. Once that is published, if that technical report has implications for properties, then it is registered on those properties and a reference is included when we pass that information to regional council, district councils. I think what is important is, as Alejandro said, in our submission, we are asking as a local government to have that conversation with the minister when the regs are set so that we can clarify some of these matters.
I guess the other question for me is cost and where that will sit with us, increased costs, obviously. I did a quick look and just for example, Currently TCDC, your standard limb costs you $255. Commercial one is $310. Do we have any indication on where we're going to go with these costs?
Through Mr. Chair, just to clarify, do you mean the cost of a member of the community getting a lien report or cost for us as an organization?
No, sorry, the cost for us as an organisation to provide this information. And I guess also to that point is, now council direct to the portal, TCDC, et cetera, direct to our portal. Are we going to have a much higher workload where these requests are going to be coming for individual properties coming to a department here in the council, and someone's going to have to sit down and provide that individual information back, rather than now, from what I can see, you're just directed to a portal and you do the work yourself?
To you, Mr. Chair, in developing the submission, we didn't identify or didn't anticipate any significant increase in cost. The resilience work program already operates, and there are many of these new requirements in the resilience work program. So this is a program led by Rick Lifting, and he can definitely provide more detail. But my understanding is that they have identified a potential increase in requests. So this is even before the bill was put forward, just because of increased awareness of natural hazards and climate change. So that has been identified through other programs that are now BAU as part of the Resilience Work Program, which means for the purposes of the impacts of the bill on regional council, we don't anticipate that they will be much bigger than we have already forecasted.
It's Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to all our requests under the Local Government Official Meetings Act, so they all go through our democracy team. We have a dedicated administrator in that team. So these will all be requests while they touch our regional resilience team. They will all come through that. We have processes that work away in the background that are relatively more streamlined than they were when I started here 10 years ago. I suspect something of a similar ilk will be set up. As Alejandro said, we have seen a spike with our increased incidents of events and people's awareness of them. We have seen a spike in terms of has that created additional cost? There has been an increase in staff time in the regional resilience team, but it's still, in my conversations with Rick a couple of months ago, it's still within the budget that's set for the team. I think because of a lot of the work that we had done proactively with a lot of the leadership from Rick, really to get this information available, it's really just setting up a process, a digital process as much as possible behind the scenes. So I would suggest the cost would be negligible at this stage.
Thank you, Tracy. Just note you have been recorded on that. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In principle, I support this, but my concern is that goimas are an expensive process. Whether it's for the applicants, it's less expensive for them, less have to get lawyers involved in it. But as far as the council's concerned, do we have a feel for how much each goia costs to respond to? And secondly, I'm of the belief that we should be making the process of discovery for our constituents easier and cheaper, rather than making it more difficult, because by making it more difficult, that imposes additional costs on the council and council staff time. So I'm very supportive of anything we can do which can make the process of information supply to our constituents more seamless and easier to access.
I'll come back to you, Tracy, for an answer.
Yeah, look, with respect to the quantum of legoimas we get, Mr. Chair, the democracy team and through Neville as the director, we have kept a track on those over the last 5 years, because as you say, some of the requests are very technical. The process of legoimas obviously is if somebody writes in for information that is going to take an awful lot of time, staff time, and used to be costs of photocopying, you would write back to the applicant and let them know that at the earliest possible opportunity. So we do keep records of that. We also have been doing some business analytics to understand if that has increased over the last few years. With social media, you know, some of the requests for the Lagoima do take a lot of time. So we do have those figures and they can be provided to you. In terms of our process of discovery, as I said, look, Rick has led this program of work over the last few years to make as much as we can possibly make available with the best legal advice on our website. So we have, I think, put ourselves in a position of strength more than a couple of other regional councils I'm aware of, and that for us it really is just developing that program of, rather than just here is a link to the hazards portal, any further information we need to put around it. But we here, I guess it's always has been a value of this organisation that we make available our information as soon as possible to the public, and try and not make the public jump through hoops such as Lagoima's unnecessarily.
Thank you, Tracy. We have a question online from Councillor Nicol.
Morning all. No question, just a comment to say thank you, Alejandro, for a really good submission. It's good to see this bill progressing to get this LIM item updated and including the second point on the national security provision. So yeah, just really supportive and happy to move or second if you would like, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. We have a question for Alejandro from Tracy.
Alejandro, just a question around residual risk. So residual risk counts as very important. You put a stock bank up, it has a design life and a protection life. So it will protect in an X number of event. I note that we have suggested adding that definition of regional risk. Do you know if regional councils as a sector are taking a similar line with that?
To you, Mr. Chair. I apologize, I didn't get enough of a chance to check in with the regional sector. However, we were confident to provide this definition because it has been through the Schedule 1 process. So we figured, at least for the regional context, it's been very well trodden, and we have discussed this with the Aotearoa Climate Adaptation Network, and is the need to understand not only the risk that comes from the hazards that are unmitigated, but also the ones where we have put structures to mitigate the risk and then they breach. So if I bring your mind to EDGCOM, the EDGCOM event, so it's just so that people can understand what will happen if there was a breach or a failure of the infrastructure.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's important that that concept of residual risk is highlighted, because a lot of people will invest in property that has flood defence mechanisms. They are not absolute flood protection mechanisms. So from our perspective, identifying that residual risk is critically important, particularly given some of those more fringe areas are under pressure for development.
Thank you, Tracy. Are there any other questions?
Can I just make a comment?
Yes, certainly, Councillor Smith.
From my experience, one of the concerns that I have is that LIMs should remain at the cost of fire because of recent events that have led to prosecution and where people have falsified the LIM after handed them over legal proceedings. So I think that the cost and from district councils and city councils, dominant area, that those costs are borne by the purchaser of the. I'd like to see them being required from the vendor because.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good as gold. We'll move to a vote. Do we need to do it in two pieces? Or we'll do it. Sorry, it's written down here in front of me in two pieces, so we will do it in two pieces. So first off, that the report on the Waikato Regional Council submission be received. So thank you, and thank you, Chris. And the second part to it is that the submission subcommittee endorses the submission. I'll do that. Yes, yep, sorry. Yeah, so moved and seconded, and all those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? And sorry, Jennifer, I do remember you're moving that. So also that the submission subcommittee endorses the submission on the local government official information and meetings amendment bill. So moved, councillor Nicol, seconded, councillor Story. All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. That brings us to the end of our session this morning. Thank you for bearing with me under my first chair of my meeting. I will get smoother, I promise. Thank you very much. Meeting closed.
Just before I do the Karakia to close, councillors, our next submissions subcommittee will be focusing on water services entities, bills 2 and 3. So just giving you a heads up that that submission is going through the process, and you should have that agenda next week.
Thank you, Tracy.
Righty-ho,
Move
so
to you for the closing Karakia.
Karakia Whakamutunga. Unuhia mai te uri tapunui. Kia wātea, kia māma. Te ngākau, te tinana, te hingingaro. I te ara takatū, koia ra I rongo I whakahairia ake ki runga, kia tina, haumi e hui e tāki e. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.
And Pamela, sorry, you've let councillors know that we'll have an update from Greg prior to cracking into our workshop.
Yep. I'll just, before you go, the meeting closed at 10:03. Thank you. Thank you, Oleana.